As the phone rang, I suspected several things. First of which was, if Spencer was dead and gone, could the doll be haunted with his ghost? Maybe not the most rational thought process, but at this point I was pretty sure he would come back with an arsenal of prickly little sewing needles to pin me to the wall. The second idea I had was, what if Spencer refuses to talk? And the third was, what if that picture was only taken last week and the doll somehow predicted it? As I wrestled with all these thoughts, a gruff voice answered the phone. "Eh?" It said. Hello. Yes, I'm trying to reach a Spencer Sutton." "That's me." "Oh, thank goodness," I exclaimed as I crossed off the potential haunted doll theory. "What you need?" "I'm just trying to keep tabs on the place. I'm not supposed to yak on the phone." No, you're fine, sir. I just need to ask you a question." He answered me with a grunt. "Your profile picture, sir. Online. When was it taken?" His voice became deeper. "You a stalker or something? Prying on my business?" "No, sir, not at all. I just really need to know, please." He grumbled at first, but then said, Last month sometime." I sighed. I didn't want to try to push my luck, but I had to press for one more question. "I just have one more question, sir." "Gonna ask me what undies I wear next?" "No, sir," I said, stuttering. "It's important." He grumbled again. "Have you come across a doll that looked like you in the past?" The other line sat quiet for some time. Then Spencer said, "Not me. I did have one that ended up looking like my brother-in-law." My heart sank. "Did you have it as a kid?" He grunted out a yes and said, "You'd be wise to get away, as far away from it as possible, especially if it's the same type of doll that I had." "Why's that, sir?" But I knew the answer. "Don't ever call me again, and run while you can," Spencer said before hanging up the phone. The new sense of urgency from Spencer sent my heartbeat into a flurry. I sprinted to the window, not noticing that my foot began to bleed again, and I checked where I chucked the Spencer doll. There he sat in the weeds, illuminated by the security light outside. Good, I have some time, I thought. I started to throw all my belongings back into my backpack, starting with the laptop and ending with my books. Then I took the lava lamp, smashed it against the wall, and found the biggest glass shard from the mess that I could find. From there, I unspooled medical tape from my first aid kit, and I searched for the baseball bat that I had grabbed earlier. Then, the squeak at the stairs came again. Now, my weapon wasn't quite ready, but I did have some glass, so at least there was that. I gripped the glass so hard that my finger began to bleed. I swung the door wide open to confront the serial squeaker, and a dark shape flew past me and down the stairs. I nearly filled my pants and slammed the door. "Freaking Spencer," I muttered. "He got bigger." My gut may have been queasy, and while my heart was flip-flopping in my chest, my desire to protect my family shocked me back to reality. That's when I remembered where the baseball bat was. It was in the closet. With the bat now in hand, I wrapped the glass and medical tape around the side of it, and I fastened it to the bat for a prime doll-killing machine. Then my dad called my cell phone. I didn't hesitate to pick up. "Dad, please tell me you're okay. The doll is..." "Son? Of course we're okay. I'm sorry for calling you so late, or I guess early in this case. But our last flight got delayed, and we're actually stuck in layover at the airport near your apartment. We would have called you sooner, but I expected to just hop on the next plane, kiddo. See, some guy got sick and it delayed the whole thing. We should really have arrived sometime around 9 in the evening. Anyways, do you mind if your mother and I stay with you at your place for the night?" I nearly dropped the phone. "Dad, I'm at your house right now. How When did you leave the place?
We've been on vacation for 2 weeks. Your mother tried leaving a message on your phone about it a couple weeks ago, but your mailbox was full. Anyways, my back is getting super tired. What do you say? Could we stay with you? I'll grill you some burgers before the flight tomorrow. Son? Son?
I dropped the phone. I nearly dropped the bat as well. I've only been that scared one other time, and it was in the ocean. A large wave swept me out to sea one year as a kid on vacation in Florida, and I remember wearing goggles and trying to figure out where I was by checking under the water, but all I could see were the shapes of large sea creatures looming in the distance. I felt like the whole world was squishing me. Felt trapped, only to await the creatures in the distance until a patrol boat picked me up and took me back to shore. Now the only difference here is that the creatures looming in the distance looked like my parents. I gripped the bat with all my might. There were 2 options. Fight them all by my lonesome, or run to the cops and have them do it for me. I'm a journalism student, not a fighter, so I opted for the cops and headed towards the window. I couldn't see through the darkness where I threw Spencer, because the security light turned back off, but I welcomed the ability to hide in the dark as I made my way to my car. Unlatching the window, I sat the bat down and I pulled up the handle to the window pane. I heard the squeak from the stairs, but I wasn't ready for the "Hey ya, sport!" that came from behind me. I pivoted to face my dad, and I grabbed the baseball bat. My fake dad looked different from before. He looked fluffier and more dull-looking, but the thing that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up was when he took off those gardening gloves to reveal perfectly sewn mitts like that of a doll. "Why you leaving so soon, pal?" Dad asked me as his eyes bulged and his smile grew wider. "You're not my dad," I said, while trying to pull the window up behind me. Dad scowled and grabbed his chest with a floppy hand. "That hurts me, Danny. You know how much your mother and I do for you." I couldn't get the window open, and I wasn't about to drop the baseball bat to use both hands. "Wait till your mother hears about this." He growled and took a step towards me. "Don't you come one step further, or I'm going to have to use this." I raised the bat with the glass part facing Dad, but he stared, smiling that crazy smile of his. I hesitated. A part of me thought that maybe this could be won with a battle of wits and manipulation, but then Dad erupted into what I could only call a top-speed jitter towards me. With milliseconds to react, I swung the bat hard down on his clavicle, but his body just bent with it like punching a pillow. The glass, however, did tear into him, only to reveal a poofy fluff of stuffing. "Danny, how could you?" Dad stumbled backwards. "I'm all torn up. I'll have to have your mother sew me. And you know how she hates having to lug that sewing machine out of the closet. Margaret, come in here, please." I heard the squeak, but Mom followed quickly after, crawling on all fours with carpet fiber hair and teeth that seemed to tear out of the fabric of her face. Where Dad had puny mitts, Mom also had mitts, but they were coated in nails and needles of all sorts. As Mom looked up at me, she shrieked a blood-curdling scream so loud that I thought my eardrums might pop. Mom placed all her weight on her legs, telegraphing that she was about to leap, so I raised the bat above my head and I smacked her with all my might as she leapt towards me. Her fabric tore as well, but her stuffing seemed older and moldy. I turned to the window, ready to capitalize on the moment, but Spencer sat there on the other side, staring into my soul with those blank eyes. The stitched tears were now replaced with real blood. Then Dad smashed into me, slamming my head against the windowsill and knocking out one of my teeth in the process. Now, how he had that much power behind that punch when he appeared to be nothing more than a fleshy fabric and smelly stuffing was beyond me. But I had no mind to analyze it, so I hit him with the baseball bat again. Mom howled behind him and dove at me, but thanks to Dad's prodigious girth, due to too much stuffing lately, his body blocked her and they both tumbled to the ground. I wasted no time and I ran into the hallway. Mom seemed a bit nimbler than Dad, so she was the one that I feared the most. and I knew I had hardly any time before she caught up with me. With this in mind, I ran for the attic pulley, while swallowing gobs of blood from my now severed tooth. Before you judge me for enclosing myself in the attic, and for falling for one of the worst horror movie tropes, I'll have you know that I had half a mind to break the upper window of the attic and to climb down on the side of the house. This route would have provided me with much more time to escape, rather than running through the house, hoping that I could outrun my fake mother. Anyways, you try being in this scenario. It's really not fun. The attic pulley came down with ease and I sprinted up, pulling it closed behind me. I hoped that they didn't notice and I waited with the baseball bat ready just in case they pulled the attic door down. After about 2 minutes, I could hear my dad shouting from downstairs, "Danny boy, come on out. We should play baseball." I could hear my mom as well, but all she did was shriek, so I tried to tune it out. But the coast did seem clear, so I pulled out my phone to call the cops, only to find that it had cracked and a kaleidoscope of electronic colors where the home screen of my cat used to be. I then said a couple words that were most definitely harmful to my career in journalism, but it did make me feel better. Without the cops, there was nothing left but to get to my car and drive away. I could see a clear trajectory from the attic window to my car, but getting there without breaking a leg would be quite the task. I took a deep breath and reached for the latch to the window, unlatched it, and listened to it creak open. But something behind me skittered around. I wasn't afraid of piddly little Spencer anymore. I was afraid of Mom and Dad. Seeing how nothing else could have made that noise other than Spencer, I readied my bat to smash him to smithereens and was greeted to something that haunts me to this day. In front of me, wearing the same style hoodie as me, with black jogging pants, white sneakers, even the same black beanie that I was wearing, all the way to my glasses and my newly missing tooth, was me. I wasn't large like Mom and Dad, no. I looked about the same size as Spencer. Out of anger, I grabbed the doll by the neck, determined to not let whatever this was spread. If Spencer Sutton had a doll made after his poor brother-in-law, and I had a doll made after Spencer Sutton, then in no way would I let some other poor kid have a doll made after me, especially when the thing tried to replace my family with stuffed freaks. Hoisting the mini-me out of the attic window, I hopped down into some bushes. It hurt, bad, but thanks to adrenaline and shock, I didn't feel the fracture in my leg until about 5 minutes after the chaos. My car was so close, and I could feel the keys in my pocket, but as I got near, I saw Spencer sitting on the steps to the porch, pointing at me. Mom shrieked, and Dad started laughing from inside the house. I knew then that Spencer told them where I was, and dang it, I left that baseball bat in the attic. In a frenzy, I threw Mini-Me at Spencer with an impressive overhand, and knocked him over. I don't know if that did anything, but it sure made me feel good as I snatched the keys from my pocket and ran for the car door. Mom came out of the house first, shrieking and oozing some liquid from the hole in her fabric that I hadn't seen earlier, and Dad came out behind her. He was sporting a recently grown set of teeth, 3 times the size of my mom's mutant teeth. The car rocked as I slammed against the door and started jimmying the handle as hard as I could, but it wouldn't open. Let me remind you, I'm an aspiring journalist. When I tell you that the door was stuck, and that it wasn't because I forgot to unlock the thing, that's what we call in the journalism world spin. Before I realized my error, Dad flipped me over the car with astronomical strength and I landed on the back on the other side of it. Mom tried to finish the job by diving onto me and smacking me with her needle hands, and believe me, it wasn't pleasant. I felt blood cling to my shirt and splatter around me as I crab walked backwards from her. She kept diving, and the smell was horrid, but I felt something. I felt the overturned grill. I reached deep inside the torn hole in Mom's neck, where the disgusting, moldy stuffing was coming out, and I started just yanking it all out. The monsters must have pain sensors or something, because she didn't like that too much, and she flailed backwards towards the car. But now Dad was coming. I flipped over to my hands and knees, ignoring the blood from my mouth, shoulders, hands, arms, chest, neck, and face, and everywhere else, and I rummaged through the ash piles around the grill until I found it. Yeah, I found it all right. The lighter fluid. Now, Dad, he never could light a fire on the charcoal grill, so we always bought extra lighter fluid, and he bought quick start charcoal. Sure, it made the burgers taste like gas, but I'd never complain about it again after that night. I squirted every ounce of that lighter fluid on Dad, on Mom, on Mini-Me, and on Spencer, drenching them in the putrid chemical smell. Dad screamed in a guttural, unnatural howl, and my mom did the same. As I grabbed my cigarettes from my back pocket and pulled out a match, Dad looked at me in the eyes and said,
"Jenny, why didn't you tell me you smoked? That's horrible for your lungs."
I hesitated. To see such humanity, no matter how little in this entity, was strange to me. But I knew my real parents were waiting back home, where my dad would call me kiddo and make burgers with charcoal, and Mom would make apple goop with sugar, and they would both resent my choice to pursue journalism. All I could say to the thing was, "I know," and I dropped the match on him. They burned for several hours, and I watched every second. I made sure that every ounce of stuffing that came out of them burned to ash. Then I gathered the ashes into a roomy plastic bag and threw them in the dumpster. I waited for a little longer and watched the sun begin to rise. Sure, this place was a home to me, and it would always be, assuming I didn't need therapy to cope with the night's events. After all, my real mom and dad would have to come back here at some point. But anyways, this place, while it is a huge part of my life, my true home is with my family, and I regret letting them go so long without seeing me. Maybe if I visited more often, I would have been able to prevent this thing from happening, or at least notice that these frauds weren't my parents before they cut me up. I lit a smoke and climbed in my car, minding my tibia, which began to hurt quite badly. On the way home, I thought of my final project, my parents, my leg, and finally, I know I shouldn't say it, as this is what we call a hot take in the journalism business, but man, I thought about how smoking really paid off.